Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thank you very much for joining today's Jakpost Up Close webinar on Seizing Growth Momentum, Guide to Best Investment Destination in Indonesia. I'm Eisya, journalist at the Jakarta Post, and I will be the moderator for today's discussion. Now, before we begin, let me remind the attendants that our webinar will be bilingual in English and Bahasa Indonesia, and we provide you with interpretation. You can easily switch between the languages by activating the interpretation feature on your Zoom app. Here with us today are three distinguished gentlemen. First, we have Bapak Indra Darmawan, Senior Economic Advisor to Investment Minister. We have Pak Fesly Abadi Paranoan, Head for Center of Strategic Planning of Batam, Indonesia Free Trade Zone Authority, or BP Batam. And we also have Bapak Olly, Chairman at the British Chamber of Commerce in Indonesia. Each speakers will have 15 minutes for their presentation, after which we will have a Q&A session for approximately 30 minutes. Audiences, please do not hesitate to send in your question either in English or in Bahasa Indonesia through the Q&A box on your Zoom app at any time. We will select some of the questions to be discussed later, and the panelists can also directly answer your question in the Q&A box. However, due to time limit, we might not be able to answer all of your questions. Today's webinar, supported by Investment Ministry, aims to explore Indonesia's investment potential as the country recorded its first economic growth in the year since the COVID-19 pandemic hammered the country's economy. As economic activities regain their pace and the government continues to improve health protocol and vaccination, it is high time to resume or begin investment in the country. The Investment Ministry already recorded that 442.8 trillion had been invested in the country from January to June. However, the pandemic is not over yet, and challenges remain for investors to enter Southeast Asia's largest economy. Here, we are going to discuss Indonesia's investment ecosystem during the pandemic and also its opportunities that lies ahead. So without further ado, let's start this webinar and welcome our first speaker, Bapak Indra Darmawan. Bapak Indra obtained his doctoral degree in Community and Regional Planning from Flinders University, Australia. He also worked in the National Development Planning Agency, or Bappenas, before moving to the Investment Ministry, where he is now the Senior Economic Advisor to the Investment Minister. Indra will be updating us on the latest investment policies as well as presenting how industrial clusters thrive during the pandemic. Pak Indra, you will have 15 minutes and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Eisya. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me in this wonderful occasion. Let me have the opportunity to share the screen for our discussion today. Yeah. Yes, this webinar's title is Seizing Growth Momentum. And I just immediately ask, what momentum are we going to use? So this is the momentum. So on the right-hand side, we see some decreasing number of new cases, daily new cases, which almost reach as low as the last low of the second quarter. So this is quite a bit encouraging, but still for us, please be alarmed and don't be too overconfident. We have to maintain our disciplines and to keep this health situations in better shapes. On the left-hand side, you can see this is the real momentum in terms of economic development. So you see that manufacturing purchasing managers index an index that used uh, to measure the activities of the economy is deteriorating from 53 to right now only 43. This means that during the lockdown from June, July, and August, and entering September, have made a toll on the economic activities, so that the purchasing managers index is declining. This is also serve as an alarm for us to be a more resilient also, and also keep our disciplines in the health protocols. We see also some inflations in any countries globally are moving up, but in Indonesia right now is quite manageable. And we can see on the trade figures, the National Board for Statistics announced 2 or 3 days ago that the trade balance of Indonesia posted the highest in history of surplus. So this is also a momentum. On the second quarter of this year, Indonesia also improved in terms of economic growth, reaching 7.07%. This is also momentum. Even though many people see that this high growth, the highest since 2004, is due to the low base effect of this quarter. Nevertheless, this is showing an optimism. So this is the momentum too. So, and then the last thing that I can share with you as a momentum that we can utilize is yesterday's events. I cannot hide my excitement. Perhaps also we also cannot hide our excitement to see yesterday's event in which President Jokowi officiated the new facilities for electric vehicle battery factory, the first of its kind in the country and the first in Southeast Asia. And with that, Indonesia entering a new phase of manufacturing into a so-called the electric vehicle area. So we have already started that. That is also a momentum in which we can utilize that. We can see also, this is what I just mentioned, the economic growth. It will not probably continue to be a shape like a Nike logo. It will be something around like W shape, because after 707 on the second quarter, it is projected to be coming down to around 3.1 to around 4.6. So it's more like a W shape of recovery instead of like a Nike shape recovery. But nevertheless, still optimism. This is the projection from 10 institutions about the economic growth of Indonesia this year, projected as low as 3.5 and the highest as 5.3. So it's still on the positive side. This is also the consumer confidence index, in which on the last 3 months, because of the heavy limitation of the mobility due to the lockdown or PPKM, down to around 80. We hope that after this, on the third quarter, it will be better. And also some loan growth started beginning to creeping in, and the deposit growth also started to decreasing. Just beginning, but we can see some hope in this. Nevertheless, on the attractiveness of Indonesia as a destination for FDI, according to the UNCTAD, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development report, stated that Indonesia is still among top 20 host economies in the last 2 years as a top destination for FDI. We are ranking number 17, above France, Vietnam, and Japan. So it is also something to touch upon as utilizing the growth momentum. And I can also report to you that the realization of investment for the first 6 months of this year, around 442 trillion rupiah. That's around equivalent to somewhere around 30 billions that we reach the first the first 6 months of this year. What is more interesting to see is the balance between FDI and domestic. It's almost equal. Usually, FDI accounted for 70% and 30% domestic. Right now, the balance is about equal. Also, the balance outside Java and Java is almost equal. So almost half of the realization of investment happening outside Java. Many people believe that this is the result of the massive infrastructures investment outside Java during the first Jokowi administration 6 to 7 years ago. And all of this realization in the first 6 months of this year have been created more than 600,000 jobs. So in addition, Indonesia continue to improve their performance in the ease of doing business. These are our plan. The existing procedures, number of days, and cost of doing business. And then on the right-hand side, you can see our plan to slash the procedures, to reduce the number of days, and also to reduce the cost of doing business. This plan have already been discussed with the World Bank team around a month ago in Washington, D.C., to inform that that Indonesia is already undertaking some reform in the doing business area, in hope that our ranking will improve from 73 into somewhere better at the level of 60s, something like that. And also, lastly, that many people still thinking about what is happening on on the Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja, on the job creation law, or also well known as the Omnibus Law. Right now, the Omnibus Law has been entering the critical phase, that is the implementation of that. The important phase in any law is that it will be implemented. So it is interesting to see how it goes in the implementation. For all we know that we squeeze in this omnibus law, we squeeze 79 laws into one, and then after that we create 51% implementing regulation as a result of that. That consists of 47 government regulation plus 4 presidential decrees. And below that, we also have a new 217 ministerial decrees. So it's never before in Indonesian history, we create so many regulation in so little time. So we produce all of this in probably just 6 to 7 months. So it's never happening before. And one thing that under the responsibility of our ministry is government regulation number 5 concerning the implementation of licensing regulation, the so-called OSS, online single submission. Under this particular government regulation number 5, we have also around 22 in ministerial decree. So it is all a reform that require a huge task, a huge and daunting task. And 3 weeks ago, the president officiated the new platform for licensing in our office. So we'll be having a new OSS platform, which is risk-based. What does it mean? Right now, sectors will be classified according to the risk. There will be a low risk, there will be a medium risk, or there will be a high risk. And only the high risk sectors that need license. So if your sectors are categorized as low sectors, all you got to do is just register. Maybe take about 30 to 40 minutes. And then after that, you just go ahead with your business. If you're considered medium risk, so all you got to do is register and plus some certificates like certificate halal. And if your sectors is considering as high risk, then you need a license. How do we know whether it's low, medium, or high? The parameter is about HSE. H is health, S is security, E is environment. So as long as you don't pose some risks on the environment and health and security, you just register and then go ahead with your business. So that is the major change in our licensing regime and come up with the OSS risk-based approach. If you want to know, what does it look like, so you can browse in oss.go.id. I repeat, oss.go.id. It is quite mobile friendly though, even though in making the real application for license, we suggest you use bigger devices like laptop or desktop. But just for viewing, just for the sake of curiosity, if you want to know what kind of new licensing platform it look like today, you can browse on that address on the oss.go.id. So it will look like this. The OSS. That's the interface of the risk-based OSS system. And also later, my colleague from Batam will tell you more about the investment estate and industrial estate and special economic zone. How does it look like, and what about the requirement to do business in that area? This is around 15 special economic zone that we have now, 4 free trade zone, including Batam then, and other industrial estate that probably my colleague from Batam will tell you later. This is the last thing that I want to share with you about the investment destinations, the interesting investment destination all around the country, according to the islands. You see that on the Sulawesi and Maluku Islands, there's a nickel natural resources that to be processed into battery cells, and we've been developing some business there. Also for asphalt in Buton in Southeast Sulawesi, also fisheries in Maluku, and also processing of the cacao in Sulawesi. Opportunity for fertilizers and methanols, and also for copper and its derivative, and also for nutmeg and its derivative in West Papua. For Kalimantan area, there is also some center for energy to support the development of a new capital proposed by the government. In Sumatra, as always, there's always some processing of the CPO into oleochemical biodiesels, also processing of bauxite and pulp and paper, and also some rubber industry. This is also provides some good opportunity for the investors. And also in Java, no doubt, there's a lot of also downstream and also the processing of oil and gas, the refineries, and also it just happened yesterday, the development of industrial ecosystem for electric vehicle, and also some other potential services in this area. For Bali and Nusa Tenggara, definitely is tourism related, and also for health related for the mature people. So it is always, this information can serve as a guide for you to know which which interesting investment destination around the country. And also, this is just an example for an area development in West Java, like Rebana, Golden Triangle, covering Port City, Patimbang, Ciwali, Cipali, West Subang, Indramayu, Kertajati, Tukdana, Jatiwangi, Cirebon, Balongan, Losarang, and Patrol. This will be supported by sufficient water, power, data center, special economic zone opportunity, and support for permit and license processing. So I think that's all that I can share with you. Maybe later in the discussion, we have the Director for Promotions, Bapak Cahyo Purnomo, that will be more than happy to answer the questions. Thank you very much, Eisya. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Pak Indra, for your presentation. Some key takeaways that I get from your presentation is that Indonesia is still the top 20 countries in terms of FDI despite the pandemic. And also, you spoke about how Indonesia is still continuing to improve ease of doing business, aiming to rank around the 60s by making cost and licensing more efficient. I understand that you have to go. You cannot stay with us until the end of the session. So before you leave the meeting room, I would like to ask all participants to take a picture. Please turn on your cameras and smile at the count of 3. Is everyone ready? Okay, I think we're ready. Okay, on a count of 3, let's smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Pak Indra, for your lovely presentation. I'm sure that it will spark more discussion during the Q&A session.
Thank you. Thank you, Pak Cahyo. Thank you.
Okay. So our next speaker, we have Bapak Fesly, and he will be presenting in Bahasa Indonesia. So I will also switch to Bahasa. Just a friendly reminder that viewers on Zoom can access the interpreter feature on the bottom right of your screen. So Bapak Fesly Abadi Paranoan memulai karirnya di BP Batam pada tahun 2003. Saat ini, beliau menjabat sebagai Kepala Pusat Perencanaan dan Program Strategis BP Batam. Bapak Fesly akan menjelaskan mengenai perkembangan BP Batam sebagai salah satu klaster industri terdepan di Indonesia, dan juga bagaimana kawasan industri lain dapat menarik lebih banyak investor. Kepada Bapak Fesly Abadi Paranoan, tempat dan waktu kami persilahkan.
Baik, terima kasih Bu Eisya atas kesempatannya. Sebelumnya kami mohon maaf sedalam-dalamnya karena Bapak Kepala yang sedianya hadir dalam acara ini mendadak harus menghadiri rapat dengan Bapak Menteri. Namun dengan tidak mengurangi rasa hormat kami kepada Jakarta Post, maka kami akan mewakili beliau menyampaikan kata sambutan dari beliau. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang dan salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Yang terhormat Penasihat Ekonomi Senior Kementerian Investasi RI, Bapak Indra Darmawan, Ketua Kamar Dagang dan Industri Inggris, Olly, hadirin sekalian yang berbahagia. Sebagai pembuka, kami akan menyampaikan pantun. Merantau ke kota, tinggal di kos, berharap mendapatkan banyak karunia. Saya hadir di acara Jakarta Post untuk mengenalkan Batam kepada dunia. Dengan perhiasan mempercantik diri, membeli emas haruslah teliti. BP Batam untuk negeri melayani investasi sepenuh hati. Para narasumber dan peserta webinar, pertama-tama kami menyampaikan apresiasi setinggi-tingginya kepada pihak penyelenggara, yaitu Jakpost, yang telah mengundang kami dalam webinar menggapai momentum pertumbuhan panduan destinasi investasi terbaik di Indonesia. Bapak Ibu sekalian, Batam telah berkembang sebagai daerah industri perkapalan, perdagangan, dan pariwisata secara progresif selama 50 tahun terakhir. Batam juga merupakan daerah dengan pertumbuhan ekonomi tertinggi di Provinsi Kepulauan Riau. Pertumbuhan ekonomi pada tahun 2019 di Batam yaitu 5,92%, melampaui pertumbuhan ekonomi provinsi yang 4,84% dan bahkan sama dengan pertumbuhan nasional yaitu 5,92%. Perkembangan industri turut membantu percepatan pertumbuhan ekonomi. Awalnya Batam hanyalah sebuah pulau kecil yang dulu jarang terdapat pemukiman penduduk dan masih didominasi oleh hutan belantara. Perubahan pola spasial terjadi dalam kurun waktu tahun 1990 hingga tahun 2000. Sepanjang 10 tahun tersebut ada perubahan yang sangat signifikan dari sisi pembangunan infrastruktur serta pengembangan industri. Pertumbuhan kawasan industri berawal dari inisiasi kerjasama antara Indonesia dan Singapura. Presiden Soeharto menanam pohon beringin bersama PM Singapura Lee Kuan Yew dan disaksikan Menteri Riset Teknologi B.J. Habibie sebagai lambang persahabatan antara kedua negara dan sebagai tanda dibukanya Batam Center bagi para penanam modal serta sebagai kawasan perdagangan, industri, dan pemerintahan pada 29 November 1987. Pada tahun 1997 tercatat hanya 9 kawasan industri yang ada di Batam. Peningkatan secara drastis mulai muncul di tahun 2000 dengan adanya 21 kawasan industri. Dan saat ini tahun 2021 Batam telah memiliki 26 kawasan industri dan berdasarkan data dari LKP PKPM RI, saat ini perusahaan penanam modal asing sebanyak 424 perusahaan yang tersebar di kawasan industri dengan berbagai macam fokus industri dan didominasi oleh industri manufaktur dan jasa. Bapak Ibu yang kami hormati, letak Batam yang sangat strategis di jalur perairan internasional di Selat Malaka dan hanya berjarak 20 km dari Singapura membuat Batam memiliki kelebihan dibandingkan dengan daerah lain di Indonesia. Batam memiliki 5 pelabuhan penumpang internasional yang juga merupakan pintu masuk utama untuk pariwisata, sehingga Batam menjadi 3 destinasi utama di Indonesia setelah Bali dan Jakarta. Batam juga memiliki 4 pelabuhan kargo yang terus akan dikembangkan sebagai pendukung logistik pendukung kegiatan industri, salah satunya Pelabuhan Batu Ampar. Batam memiliki Bandara Internasional Hangadim yang memiliki landasan terbang terpanjang di Asia Tenggara yaitu 4.025 meter. Dan saat ini sedang dalam tahap pengembangan dengan konsorsium Angkasa Pura, Incheon Korea Selatan, dan PT Wijaya Karya. Dengan area yang akan dikelola seluas kurang lebih 350 hektar, dengan melakukan perbaikan Terminal 1, pembangunan Terminal 2, serta mengoperasikan fasilitas landasan pacu dan penuh kargo. Kebutuhan air bersih di Batam dipasok untuk industri dan rumah tangga, dengan dilengkapi 7 waduk dan 2 waduk lainnya yang sedang tahap pembangunan. Selain itu, sejak tahun 2003, Batam telah memiliki pipa gas bawah tanah di beberapa area yang berasal dari Gresik Jambi, yang dipasok untuk rumah tangga dan tujuan komersil. Batam juga memiliki fiber optik untuk mendukung komunikasi dan internet dengan kecepatan tinggi. Selanjutnya, infrastruktur di Batam telah mencapai total kapasitas yang melebihi kebutuhan 473 MW. Hal ini dibantu oleh beberapa jenis pembangkit listrik tenaga diesel, tenaga gas, serta tenaga uap untuk tujuan rumah tangga dan komersil. Selain itu, Batam juga terkenal dengan ruas jalan yang lebar, karena konsep pembangunan Batam yang berorientasi industri, di mana seluruh konsep pembangunan jalan telah didesain sejak awal berdirinya BP Batam. Batam juga mulai mengembangkan energi terbarukan dengan pembangkit listrik tenaga surya, dan telah menandatangani MOU dengan Sunsip Group Private Limited dari Singapura, senilai 29 triliun rupiah di Waduk Duriangkang, dan dengan PT Tobabara Energi senilai 6,8 triliun rupiah di Waduk Tembesi. Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, selain sebagai kota industri, Batam juga dikenal dengan Jembatan Barelang yang merupakan kependekan dari Batam Rempang Galang dengan total panjang keseluruhannya yaitu 2.000 meter, 2.042 meter, yang menghubungkan pulau-pulau yang membentang menjadi kesatuan wilayah kerja BP Batam. Terdapat 6 jembatan dengan model yang berbeda, sehingga kerap kali menjadi tempat belajar para insinyur muda dunia dengan desain dan model yang berbeda. Ke-6 jembatan ini merupakan model percontohan untuk jembatan di Indonesia. Salah satunya jembatan Suramadu. Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, Batam yang berada di luar wilayah rawan bencana alam serta dikelilingi oleh ribuan pulau kecil membuatnya menjadi pilihan terbaik dalam membangun pusat teknologi informasi atau IT Center yang dikelola sendiri oleh BP Batam. Atas alasan keamanan ini pula, maka Batam dipilih untuk menyimpan data dari berbagai perusahaan dan instansi di Indonesia dengan ISO 9001-2015 dan ISO 27001-2013. Saat ini telah ada beberapa kementerian lembaga yang menyimpan data di IT Center BP Batam. Bapak Ibu peserta webinar, sebagai salah satu destinasi investasi utama di Indonesia, Batam mencatatkan total realisasi investasi pada semester pertama 2021 sebesar 7,76 triliun rupiah dengan 2.567 proyek dengan investasi terbesar dari sektor industri elektronik, di mana berdasarkan data dari laporan kegiatan penanaman modal atau LKPM, bahwa terdapat peningkatan realisasi investasi PMA dan PMDN antara 2020 dan 2021 sebanyak 10,69%, dengan peningkatan jumlah proyek sebanyak 200,12%. Bulan Juni 2021 menandai momen penting BP Batam dalam peningkatan kekuatan ekonomi. Selain dikenal dengan Free Trade Zone atau FTZ, pemerintah pusat menetapkan peraturan pemerintah nomor 67 tahun 2021 tentang Kawasan Ekonomi Khusus Batam Aerotechnic atau KEK BAT, dan peraturan pemerintah nomor 68 tahun 2021 tentang Kawasan Ekonomi Khusus Nongsa atau yang dikenal dengan KEK Nongsa. Peraturan pemerintah tersebut ditandatangani oleh Bapak Presiden Republik Indonesia, Bapak Joko Widodo, yang disampaikan langsung oleh Menteri Koordinator Bidang Perekonomian, Bapak Erlangga Hartarto, pada Sabtu 12 Juni 2021. Kedua KEK tersebut merupakan yang pertama di Batam, bergabung dengan KEK lainnya yang ada di Indonesia. KEK BAT ini merupakan KEK pertama di Indonesia yang menerapkan Maintenance, Repair, and Overhaul atau MRO yang diusulkan oleh PT Batam Aerotechnic sebagai penyedia jasa perawatan dan perbaikan pesawat, khususnya untuk pesawat Lion Air Group. KEK ini telah menyerap 2.000 tenaga kerja dan menargetkan 9.976 tenaga kerja pada tahun 2030, dengan target investasi sekitar 6,2 triliun rupiah hingga tahun 2030. Target investasi KEK BAT akan terrealisasi untuk pembangunan berbagai fasilitas penunjang industri MRO dengan kegiatan usaha produksi dan pengolahan, logistik dan distribusi, penelitian, ekonomi digital, dan pengembangan teknologi dan ekonomi lainnya. Sedangkan KEK Nongsa yang sudah mapan sebagai industri kreatif terkemuka diharapkan dapat menjadi pintu masuk bagi perusahaan teknologi dan informasi internasional untuk meningkatkan investasi di bidang ekonomi digital. KEK Nongsa telah menyerap total 1.395 tenaga kerja dan menargetkan total 16.500 tenaga kerja pada tahun 2040, dengan target investasi kurang lebih 16 triliun rupiah pada tahun 2040. KEK telah memantapkan kegiatan usahanya di bidang ekonomi digital dan riset pengembangan teknologi, pariwisata, pendidikan, industri kreatif, dan bidang ekonomi lainnya. KEK sendiri akan membawa banyak keuntungan di berbagai sektor, seperti perpajakan, kepabeanan, dan cukai, lalu lintas barang, tenaga kerja, keimigrasian, pertanahan, dan tata ruang. Keuntungan tersebut tentunya akan membuat proses perizinan menjadi lebih cepat dan mudah, sehingga akan menarik investasi baru. Sementara itu, dalam waktu dekat, BP Batam juga telah mengusulkan KEK Kesehatan Internasional di Sekupang, bertempat di Rumah Sakit BP Batam berada, dan KEK Aerocity yang berada di kawasan Bandara Hang Nadim. Bapak, Ibu peserta webinar yang kami hormati, selanjutnya pemerintah pusat pada tanggal 2 Februari 2021 melalui PP nomor 41 tahun 2021 menambahkan kebijakan baru mengenai kelembagaan dan kebijakan strategis pengelolaan kawasan perdagangan bebas dan Pelabuhan Bebas Batam, Bintan, dan Karimun untuk meningkatkan ekosistem investasi dan pertumbuhan ekonomi, perluasan lapangan kerja, serta peningkatan daya saing kawasan. Dalam implementasi PP nomor 41 tahun 2021, BP Batam diberikan wewenang untuk mengeluarkan 69 perizinan, sehingga pelaku usaha lebih mendapatkan kemudahan berusaha dan berinvestasi. Para peserta webinar yang kami hormati, berdasarkan hal tersebut, diharapkan ke depannya Batam mampu tumbuh dalam segala bidang, sehingga mempercepat masuknya investasi yang sejalan dengan kesejahteraan masyarakat di dalamnya, serta berkontribusi pada perekonomian nasional. BP Batam juga telah mengabdi selama genap 50 tahun di Batam, dan terus berupaya dalam meningkatkan investasi dan pembangunan, sehingga dapat berkontribusi besar dalam perekonomian di Indonesia, khususnya Batam. Sebagai penutup, Bapak Ibu, izinkan kami menyampaikan 2 pantun lagi. Bapak petani menanam padi, air mengalir di irigasi, 50 tahun sudah BP Batam mengabdi, majukan kota Batam dengan investasi. Pelabuhan Batu Ampar kami kembangkan untuk mengurangi logistik cost. Ucapan selamat kami berikan, jayalah selalu Jakarta Post. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih sekali Pak Fesly untuk presentasinya yang sangat lengkap dan juga untuk pantunnya. Tadi kita ada berapa? 4 pantun ya Pak ya?
Iya Ibu.
Oke, tadi dari yang saya tangkap, investasi di Batam itu terus meningkat ya Pak, walaupun kondisi pandemi.
Betul.
Dengan adanya Nongsa Digital Park dan juga MRO-BAT, Batam juga semakin siap untuk menerima lebih banyak lagi tenaga kerja dan juga badan usaha. Sebelum kita ke pembicara berikutnya Pak, saya punya pertanyaan untuk BP Batam. Batam ini kan lokasinya dia ada di bordernya Indonesia. Selama pandemi, bagaimana Batam sudah menerapkan protokol kesehatan untuk menghalau lebih banyak lagi kasus COVID-19?
Ya, Ibu Eisya, jadi Bapak Kepala BP Batam sekaligus Bapak Wali Kota Batam mencoba untuk mengendalikan penyebaran COVID atau pandemi COVID ini dengan berbagai kebijakan. Yang terakhir ini menerapkan PPKM level 4. Dan kebijakan ini ternyata cukup berhasil untuk mengatasi penyebaran COVID dan hingga saat ini terus menurun dan level PPKM-nya juga terus terkendali. Level penyebaran COVID-nya juga terkendali dan levelnya juga turun. Dan terkait dengan vaksinasi di Kota Batam sudah 70%, dan total untuk yang selesainya sudah mencapai 30%. Dan kasus-kasus perharinya yang tadinya sekitar 400-500 hingga sekarang turun menjadi 32 orang. Kira-kira begitu, Bu Eisya, dan memang upaya ini juga ternyata berhasil. Di sisi lain juga kegiatan ekonomi juga tetap berjalan dengan baik. Mungkin itu yang dapat kami sampaikan, Bu.
Baik, terima kasih Pak. Semoga kasusnya semakin menurun dan kita semua ya, nggak hanya Batam, tapi kita semua bisa segera terbebas dari pandemi ini.
Ya, Ibu.
Okay, before I introduce our next speaker, just a quick note for our audience. If you miss anything from this discussion, today's webinar is also available live or for replay on our YouTube channel. The name is the Jakarta Post on YouTube. Okay. So we have been listening from the government's point of view. Now we move to the investor's perspective with Bapak Olly. Pak Olly has extensive experience working in Asia's market, as he had worked at Michael Page in Shanghai and Beijing, as well as launching Michael Page in Indonesia. He was appointed as the chairman of the British Chamber of Commerce, or Britcham, in Indonesia on December last year. I will now hand over the virtual mic to Pak Olly.
Thank you, Eisya, and good afternoon, everybody. Two very interesting presentations, and has been mentioned. Hopefully I can give a slightly different perspective. I've been working in and around Asia now for the last 14 years, predominantly with companies who are looking to invest in this region. And in the last 7 years, after we launched Michael Page Jakarta in 2013, really focused on the Indonesia market. And on a sort of an optimistic note, which both presentations previously have also signalled, so far this year we've seen record numbers in terms of hiring in Indonesia. A lot of that triggered in the technology sector, but we are seeing more traditional sectors also very active in bringing in talent into these companies. And so far the numbers for 2021 are higher than they were in 2019 pre-COVID, which was a record year for us in Indonesia. And on another positive note, our Jakarta office globally is top 3 fastest growing businesses, and that's out of 156 offices across 35 countries. So Indonesia is certainly getting on the map from a global perspective. There are clearly still some challenges, which I will highlight, and also plenty of opportunities as well for foreign investment. So moving into the presentation itself, I think it's quite widely documented that it's not the easiest country to set up a business in. I think things are improving, and as you can see by this survey by the World Bank published in 2020, Indonesia currently ranks 73rd. That's interesting when you compare it to its neighbours, who often it's competing with for investment, so the likes of Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines. As you can see, Vietnam, Indonesia, fairly similar ranking. The likes of Thailand and Malaysia are quite far ahead in terms of purely doing ease of doing business, and that's really the conversation we have with many investors: is where should they set up? And they do look at information like this to sort of make that decision. I also run the Philippines business, and I can assure you Indonesia is a far easier business culture to set up a foreign business than the Philippines, as is reflected in those numbers. If we move on to the next slide, some of the key sort of challenges, I think these again are probably well documented or well understood. If I highlight a couple of these, and this is taken from a European Chamber index last year, the corruption one does come up continually when we're talking to foreign companies or investors or private equity firms looking to come into portfolios here. It's only in a few sectors, to be fair, and unfortunately it does tend to tarnish the overall reputation a little bit. So it's more of a perception rather than reality is how we view that. And again, a lot of time spent discussing that with various companies. The next two challenges we tend to see, the regulatory environment, and as Indra alluded to, there have been significant moves for the better in that, and that's certainly been welcomed by the foreign business community. And labour policy, the omnibus law has come into action. So again, early days, and I think if you're a company overseas, it's not the easiest piece of regulation to interpret, and it's still quite early days. So the intent is absolutely right, and we expect to see that a positive result coming from that on an ongoing basis. The key thing really on the labour side is actually more around the ability to find the people needed to sustain a business, and that again is often perception versus reality, that there are talent shortages or talent gaps in the Indonesian market. The unicorn firms have certainly changed the landscape around talent and have really put Indonesia again, given a lot of good profile to foreign investment as well, and most of them are backed by foreign investors quite significantly. They have taken a lot of the talent from some of the traditional companies, which has caused some interesting dynamics in the market. So companies having to think about different ways of attracting the people they need. Again, as a foreign investor, you are very keen to be able to bring in the people you need. With COVID, that's clearly not enabled in a lot of countries right now in terms of border restrictions. So companies are having to really look within the Indonesia talent pool itself, which is a good thing for Indonesia, but then does put pressure on HR divisions to really sort of come up with more flexible hiring plans around that. The omnibus law will help that, and that's something which we're keen to promote as well. In terms of the efforts being made to improve the business or challenge of doing business, going from sort of 20 sectors on the restricted list down to 6 is a significant move, and that has been very, very much welcomed. So that's enabling investment to come in more freely. Again, we'd expect once the pandemic sort of moves on a little bit, that investment will significantly increase, because some of these sectors which have not been that open previously are now of real interest to organisations. Again, it's more of a communication point. How does Indonesia communicate this to countries overseas that it's open for business in some of these sectors? People in Indonesia know, but the challenge is getting that message outside of Indonesia. If you move on to the next slide, some of the challenges, a lot of companies exporting to Indonesia. Again, some similar themes here, which will be quite common to a lot of people, particularly around logistics. We're seeing a lot of movement in that space, again, where not always as easy as it could be to get your products from A to B, and that's partly to do with the fact that it's a very large country and very dispersed as well in terms of its geography. Some of these other areas we are seeing becoming slightly less challenging. So again, it's moving in the right direction, but it's not quite where it want to be just yet. In terms of the positives, and this is really what I want to focus on, there are clear commercial opportunities. And yes, I'm here representing the British Chamber of Commerce, and as a result, a lot of the information I'm giving you is from a British investor point of view, but it is common across all countries. It's not just a British angle, so for foreign investment. Firstly, the infrastructure opportunities, and the previous presentation clearly alluded to that as well. There are significant investment coming in to areas like transportation, not just Jakarta, but across the country, and the new capital city, as well as creating a lot of interest from sort of overseas investors in that space. The drive towards a newer energy is again creating a lot of interest. On the UK side, quite a lot of UK technology businesses becoming involved in areas like EV and electric buses. And again, this is not just a Jakarta play, there are opportunities around the country itself. Education could be a webinar on its own. It's a big topic. Again, as you can see by the stats here, there are programs in place to try and increase this opportunities for Indonesian students. Again, back to the skills question in terms of where are the skills most needed. Often this is a grassroots solution to bring the talent in early from the beginning, and that relies on stronger education, and part of that is partnerships with overseas universities being expanded beyond the normal names. But as you can see, some countries in the region are further ahead on this than Indonesia. But I know a lot of work is being done on this, and again, with the British Chamber of Commerce has now signed 14 partnerships with universities in the UK. A number of those because they offer sustainability courses, which are very relevant, or tech skills, which again much in demand. So it's making sure it's targeted rather than just sending students overseas. It needs to be in the right areas to enable the economic growth. I mentioned the 5 unicorns. That they've clearly put Indonesia on the map, particularly around the tech space, and fintech is one of the fastest growing sectors we're seeing, not just from the UK, but investment from all over the world into fintech. And again, obvious reasons, the demographics of Indonesia are very compelling, particularly with the size of the population. Finally, climate change and COP26 in the UK, and President Jokowi attending that is a big sign that this is very high on the agenda, and is creating a lot of business interest and opportunities as well. Areas like renewable energy, again, Indonesia is well known for having very large resources, and often these are sort of interest, but have been very heavily protected, and that's what we're seeing in terms of shifting, and obviously something which affects everybody. Areas like deforestation clearly is an impact globally, and again, Indonesia can play a key role in this, particularly with G20 being hosted by Indonesia next year. It will be very much under the spotlight, which hopefully is a good thing, and will certainly attract foreign investment as a part of that as well. To sort of put this in sort of some solid facts, so there's a joint trade review or joint trade agreement has now been signed between the UK and Indonesia. It was started in pre-COVID and has now been formalised. This is partly due to Brexit. So the UK exiting Europe has created trade opportunities and trade partnership needs, and again, positioning Indonesia as a country of interest. This joint trade agreement now is a very big part of that as well. As it stands, the UK Indonesia is around 20th globally. If you take out the EU, 29th if you include the EU for UK foreign investment, or investment coming from the UK. In terms of some of the sectors, so the green sectors highlighted on this slide are the booming sectors or the hot sectors. The one really, which we've spoken about already, is this renewables and green energy. That is really where the UK government, the Department of Trade, from the DIT perspective, and from the private sector are very focused. Again, there's a good trigger point for this in the fact that COP26 is next, 2 months' time. And then, as I said earlier, sort of G20 being hosted by Indonesia is really going to put the spotlight in terms of some of these climate change protocols being put in place. Indonesia has a huge opportunity in this area. And from a recruitment point of view, we're already seeing a number of companies, from startups, SMEs, through to multinationals and the local conglomerates, pivoting towards hiring in this space to either help them put together their sustainability agenda or to execute what they're looking to do. And part of that is under government pressure to do so, but also often it's from global head office as well, needing to look 10 years ahead rather than 10 years behind. So if I was to look at one area or get you to look at one area, I would really highlight that one as a top area of interest moving forward, and not just COP26, but for a long time beyond that as well. A few statistics for you, and this presentation will be distributed as well, so I won't go through every number, but some areas here which show Indonesia still ranks quite low in all of these areas if you compare the size and scale of the country. That is the opportunity for investors. That's what they're looking at, going, well, that has to move in the right direction, just because simple economics would suggest it will. And this is something we show a lot of foreign investment company or foreign investors to show them that the opportunity, this is not a saturated market. There's an awful lot of progress and gain to be had if you can establish in Indonesia in the right way. It is a long-term project, Indonesia. It's not a country you come into and have a quick win. You really need to learn the business culture. It's very relationship driven. And that's something which some companies do struggle with, who are expecting quick results. They tend to find it's frustrating. Those who come in with a longer agenda tend to build the right relationships and then have a sustainable business themselves. And some of the key sectors from the UK, on the left-hand side, the export sector in terms of goods, and on the right-hand side, some of the service sectors that are prominent in terms of Indonesia from a British perspective. Okay, and hopefully some of these names are fairly familiar. These are some of the bigger investors into Indonesia from a British company standpoint. As it says there, the UK is is in the top 10 biggest investors in Indonesia, behind some of these other countries. And again, some very well-known global names are very prominent here. Interestingly, some of the retail companies who have challenges back in the UK are using or looking at Indonesia as a foreign growth opportunity. And Indonesia, for some of these companies, is really becoming a must-have rather than a nice-to-have as part of their foreign growth plans. And again, hopefully, you'll have seen some of these. Clearly, we'd expect this to significantly increase once the pandemic again eases up and conditions go back to some form of normality. It's not just pre-COVID. So during COVID, in the last 12 months, these companies have all opened in Indonesia. Again, some familiar names, I'm sure, some others. The one thing I would say, all of those companies took a long time to get the necessary paperwork needed to open up in Indonesia. So it was a long game to put that in context. But the more companies who are opening during a pandemic shows you the significant nature of the opportunity in Indonesia itself. So we're certainly using some of these companies to highlight why it's a good time. Don't wait for the pandemic to finish. It's important to get in now to take advantage of the economic opportunities which exist. Finally, just around the British Chamber of Commerce. So the Chamber itself was set up 40 years ago, designed almost entirely to promote trade and investment relationships between the two countries. It is one of the oldest chambers in Indonesia. As you can see, has a decent sized membership, corporate members that is. and significant activity around areas like advocacy. That the chamber itself has a board of directors of 16, half Indonesian, half over, foreign, all of whom are present directors or owners of businesses in Indonesia and well connected. So really helping on areas like advocacy to enable Indonesia to be a more attractive foreign investment destination is a big part of this. And then moving on to areas like education, human capital, which we've spoken about. Climate change is something which is, again, well documented, and the professional women's group as well. So again, as Indonesia sort of moves itself forward, a lot of work being done around diversity and inclusion. And again, all of these things are very important to investors from overseas to see that these modern thinking is in place. And the reality, again, it certainly is. It's still early days, but again, that represents a positive story. Finally, if you are interested in any topic we've covered, then do reach out to us. That the Chamber is there to assist, and clearly very happy to answer any questions on this session as well. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you so much, Olly, for your insightful presentation. Some of the key points that I get is while Indonesia is relatively an easy market to set up business for, corruption and labor policy, as well as some red tapes in Indonesia will still be a concern for investors. But companies from the UK are still keen to invest in Indonesia, especially in booming sectors such as education, health, green energy, and also technology.
Yeah, 100%. This isn't an Indonesia-only challenge. Most countries in Asia face that perception issue. And I was in China for 8 years, and China still has this challenge of trying to create a perception where it's easier to invest. So it's not just Indonesia, but I think the main message from the UK side is post-Brexit. The UK is now far more open in its opportunities to develop trade partnerships. It's how does Indonesia position itself as a country which can benefit from that?
Okay, great. Definitely we'll start discussion from your presentation. I believe that a lot of people are going to be keen to know what Britcham will do in Indonesia in the future. So our speaker have spoken about opportunities and challenges of investing in Indonesia. The country has many attractive investment destinations and it is on its way to further improve its ease of doing business. Indra talked about policy reform and the nation's overall investment plan, while Pak Fesly showed us that Batam has been resilient amid the pandemic and that it will continue to develop its economic zones. Pak Olly spoke about how Indonesia is still a favorable investment destination for British companies, but challenges also remains. Now we have reached the Q&A portion of our webinar. We have approximately 30 minutes for discussion, and I will start with the first question. Unfortunately, because Pak Indra cannot join us for this Q&A session, the questions for Investment Ministry will be answered by Pak Cahyo Purnomo. He is the BKPM Exhibition and Promotion Director. So I think the first question is for you actually, Pak Cahyo. The first question is from Moriko Suharis. This person wants to know what Indonesia's government will do to develop Indonesia's Silicon Valley in West Java.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ibu Moriko, for the question. Well, basically, we are at the Ministry of Investment or BKPM. We welcome any investment initiatives coming from, different, let's say, either coming from business people or, foreigners or, foreign entities, things like that. We welcome all the investment initiatives. And talking about the one that you are mentioned, in Sukabumi, if I'm not mistaken, the so-called Indonesian next Silicon Valley. Well, to be honest, I'm not really familiar with this. I have to look all the data, all the available data and information. And all I can say is, if this is coming from, let's say anyone or any companies or whoever they are, we welcome this, and we encourage them to, of course, to basically do whatever they need to do to let's say to accomplish their mission. I mean, if they need certain kind of support from us, if they need let's say licenses or they need any kind of support from Minister of Investment, we'll be more than happy to help. And because you know, I'm not familiar whether the one, you know, that is on plan will be, you know, in a special economic zones or SEZ or KEK, we call it in Bahasa Indonesia, or whether this is different, you know, just a normal industrial estate, you know, because it has specific regulations, you know. If this is under the specific economic zones, things are, you know, they have to follow certain procedures and regulation. They have to submit and you know, file reports to the we have the special body with this. We call it the One National or the National Council of the Special Economic Zones under the Coordinating Ministry for Economic Affairs. You know, if this is industrial estate, then this is regulated under the Minister of Industry. So I'll be open and again, you know, if you have further questions, email me, please. I will send you my email address. We'll be happy to liaise with this with you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Pak Cahyo. I personally have a question for BKPM myself. I wanted to ask, we have reached almost half of our investment realization in the first half of the year. We are approaching the fourth quarter, and I wanted to ask, how optimistic is BKPM to realizing our 900 trillion investment goal?
Well, you know, I'm not the right person actually, you know, to ask. I mean, if you want to know more about this, you know, again, I'm not the right person because I'm not dealing with I mean, this issue internally. We have a special team under the direct supervision of our Minister, Pak Bahlil, and they work very hard, you know, and basically they work day and night, you know, 24/7, you know, to make sure that things are in order, you know, that we are on track to achieve the annual target. So, but if I can, you know, express my personal view, I think the team looks great. So I think they are on track to achieve that target. Even though, because I'm not part of the team, so I cannot answer this on behalf of the team. Thank you.
Okay, Pak Cahyo. I'm sure that BKPM is doing everything that they can to achieve this target. Okay, we have a next question is for Pak Fesly. Pertanyaan ini dari Denny Herdi Priyatna. Ia bertanya, apakah Indonesia akan membuat atau merenovasi airport di Batam?
Yeah, well, Bu, I try to explain in English. In Batam, the airport is fully operated by BP Batam. So as I mentioned on the speech before, that we have already signed an MOU between BP Batam and then with a consortium. The member of consortium is Angkasa Pura I, Incheon from Korea, and also from Wijaya Karya. So by signing the MOU, we believe that that consortium will develop, will refurbish our Terminal 1, and then build the second terminal, and also operate our cargo terminal. That's the government side will do for the developing the airport of Hamunadip. That's it, Bu Elsa, sorry.
Okay, so I believe that if we continue to develop Batam, a new airport is in the pipeline in the future.
Yeah,
Okay.
we believe the same.
Okay. Okay, I have a next question is from Zulfikar Fatur Rahman. He has a bit of question for Pa Olly. He asked, have British companies reported any improvement in the investment process following the implementation of the job creation law?
British companies in Indonesia have. Foreign companies looking to come into Indonesia, not yet, because I think it's still too early. They're still, as I said earlier, it's not easy to interpret it if you're not based in Indonesia or you don't have somebody familiar with the new regulations. And there were clearly protests which did get onto the international news, and again that frames the mindset, unfortunately, not in the right way. So I'd say it's still early days, but hopefully that the British companies in Indonesia are the ones experiencing the benefits of it, will then help that communication back to countries outside to I suppose ensure the understanding accelerates.
Okay, he has a follow-up question actually regarding some of the challenges of investing in Indonesia. He asked, why do you think bureaucratic inefficiency most likely to impact Indonesia despite the recently introduced reforms? So as BKPM previously stated that we have done a lot of reform, but I think there's still bureaucratic inefficiency. And how does that impact Indonesia?
Yes, it's a bit of a legacy issue, which takes a while to shift. And that's probably the reality of that. There have been improvements. I completely agree. But again, it's really the communication. So how do businesses understand that shift? And the likes of BKPM, but also the likes of companies like Michael Page, who are interacting on a daily basis with investors overseas, are there really to help educate what it really means. Or companies need to have a partner on the ground in Indonesia who can simplify things and reassure. It's moving in the right direction, but it's, as I said, there's a lot of legacy historical issues there to sort of overcome. And it depends which part of the world you're investing from. So if you're somebody in the UK or the US, these are more cautious countries when investing compared to some other nations who, I suppose, enjoy the grey and are used to investing in some of the grey areas, and that won't change. So it's a bit of a mindset challenge as much as anything else.
Okay, thank you, Olly, for your answer. Our next question is for Pak Cahyo. This is in Indonesia, so I will try to translate it to English also. In Java, there is a education special economic zone or KEK Pendidikan. What does this mean? Does this mean that foreign universities can open up their schools in Indonesia, but only in the SEZ or the KEK zone? Or is there any incentive for universities that wants to open schools in this area?
Well, I have answered this question in the chat bot in the chat box. Actually, yes, that's right. The education sector is one of the sector which is at the moment is quite restrictive when it comes to foreign investment. So the only possibility is by having a presence inside the special economic zones. So this is the proposal that we are proposing, and if you notice, this is mainly one of the implementation under the Indonesia-Australia Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or the IACEPA. So under this agreement, basically we agree that we will open the education sector, not only actually to the Australian universities, but also to other. But because of under the current arrangement, so this has to be located somewhere inside the special economic zones.
Okay, understood. I would also like to ask this question to Pak Olly. Actually, you've mentioned that education is one of the sectors that a lot of British, companies, institutions are interested in investing. Is this something of an interest to you?
Yes, more well from a Michael Page point of view, where it's all about finding talent. Then yes, I think there's the graduate programs in Indonesia aren't as developed as in some other countries. There's graduates overseas, Indonesian graduates from overseas who maybe are not aware of the opportunities back in the country or the variety of opportunities back in the country. So there are big opportunities for this, not just for the UK, but universities all over the world. I think, as I said a bit earlier, it's making sure the courses which are being attended are relevant to where the economy is going. And as has been presented, there's some key areas there where there's real opportunities for growth, which is going to require significant human capital to enable that growth for the long term. So it's one thing creating the partnerships. It's a whole other thing then sort of making sure they actually hit the target. There's a lot of interest in investing in the education sector, but it's often just trying to find the information is not as easy as it could be, and that's where sort of the improvements could possibly come. Is really sort of opening it up a little bit more would enable that, but the interest is certainly there.
Okay, great. It seems like we are opening up, and also there's interest from investors to also build schools, universities in Indonesia. I'm sure people are going to be excited because we know that the UK has very famous, great universities.
Yeah, there's a lot of well-known universities overseas looking to do partnerships in Indonesia, joint campuses and these kind of things, and all that's very exciting. But again, we need 2 or 3 of them to do it, and then that'll then open up the confidence levels.
Okay.
Olly, if I can comment on this.
Yeah, sure.
If you say now that Oxford is to be open in Indonesia, it will be appearing in the headline of the Jakarta Post tomorrow. I'm joking.
No, but you're 100% correct. Or Cambridge.
Yeah, I'm sure we will be very happy to hear that also.
just for the sake of our discussion. Thank you.
Okay, Pak. Well, still in the realm of education, I also wanted to ask Pak Fesly. Bapak tadi juga di presentasinya menyampaikan bahwa akan ada Nongsa Digital Park, akan ada juga untuk perawatan maskapai pesawat gitu kan. Saya melihat bahwa ini juga perlu sumber daya manusia yang ahli. Nah, apakah di Batam sendiri sudah ada rencana gitu Pak untuk memperbanyak mungkin universitas atau tempat pelatihan?
Ya, Bu Elsa, terima kasih pertanyaannya. Jadi memang saat ini ada beberapa lembaga pendidikan yang sudah ada di Batam, Bu. Ya, di antaranya Politeknik Batam. Ada 10 ya, ada 10 lembaga pendidikan, dan itu sudah dipersiapkan, ada jurusan-jurusan baru yang dibuka untuk memenuhi kebutuhan perbaikan pesawat atau MRO ini. Nah, untuk Nongsa Digital Park, mereka juga punya lembaga pendidikan sendiri, dan mereka juga sudah bekerja sama ya dengan Apple Academy untuk mengembangkan SDM di sana. Tapi tadi juga kami menangkap presentasi dari Pak Olly atau Pak Cahyo itu ya, kemungkinan adanya KEK pendidikan. Batam sebenarnya juga tempat yang cocok untuk dikembangkan KEK pendidikan. Jadi bukan hal yang tidak mungkin. Di samping KEK MRO, KEK digital di Nongsa, kita juga masih punya pulau yang belum termanfaatkan di Rempang Galang, punya akses yang bagus, sudah terhubung dengan 6 jembatan tadi, punya view yang bagus, dan itu bisa dimanfaatkan untuk KEK pendidikan. Apalagi kalau misalnya nanti ada kebutuhan-kebutuhan dari industri di Singapura, jadi tidak hanya di Batam gitu, untuk KEK di Batam. Mungkin itu Bu Elsa dari kami.
Oke. Wah, ini sepertinya memang kita sudah semakin siap nih untuk menerima sekolah dan universitas yang lebih banyak lagi gitu ya.
Betul.
Saya punya pertanyaan lagi untuk Bapak Fesly. This is in English, so I hope you don't mind that I ask this also in English. This is from Willie Chales. He wants to know what is the related to the government regulation number 41, 2021. How is the implementation of that regulation regarding import quota or import restriction imposed by the Trade Ministry? As we know that the free trade zone is free from quotas. I hope I'm reading the questions right. If Willie, if I may have misask your question, please do tell us in the chat box. But yeah, as for now, how is your response to the import restriction or import quotas in Batam?
All right, Bu Elsa. I try to give a short explanation about related with the question. Actually, BP Batam has been authorized to provide or to have a right for permit and license, particularly related with the import license. And there are several sectors like health, trading, industry, water and waste environment, forestry sector, energy, and marine. In each sector, they have quite what we call detailed regulation that unfortunately I can explain it right now. But if you want to get more information about the procedure, also the system, maybe you can contact us later through our staff, which has more knowledge about it. That's it, Bu Elsa. We will provide the email address that you can contact.
Okay, thank you, Pak Fesly. Next, we have a question for Pak Cahyo. This is from Nona A. This person wants to know what are the investment opportunities in agriculture or fishery sectors? Is it more upstream or more downstream? And also, is it fully open to foreign investors?
Well, as has been mentioned by Pak Indra earlier, in his presentation, basically there are many investment opportunities in the country. If you put this in a category, let me sum it up. Let's say, for instance, in the processing industry, in the food and beverage, in the pharmaceutical or the medical devices, we see big investments are, asking for licenses, from us. Also, investment in automotive sectors, as mentioned also earlier by Pak Indra. Yesterday, our president inaugurated and attended one of the groundbreaking ceremony where some Korean business people, with big names Hyundai, LG, if I can say to you, they plan to set up the battery industry in Indonesia. And also about the labor intensive is still something that we put in our list, so we talk about textile industry, we talk about apparel, all those things, because again, apart from the intensive, let's say capital intensive industry, labor intensive is also something that we put in our list, because again, not our workers are obtain let's say necessary skill or education background, so some of them they have on selective sectors. Again, on the footwear, for instance, this is still in our list, and also other sectors. But again, on the smelting or refining, this is also something that we put in our top priority list, not only for the nickel but also for the aluminum, for the because we have bauxite, Then we have aluminum industry in North Sumatra, but they import, the raw material alumina, and we hope that the current investment activities in this alumina smelting and refining can be, the supplier for the aluminum industry. And there are many investment opportunities, including the one that you mentioned on the fishery, on the agri, mainly on the processing. And actually, Olly, you mentioned earlier on some of the names of British existing companies in Indonesia. Actually, we just finished, making our own video of existing success stories by interviewing some of the, let's say, big names. And one of them is AstraZeneca. You mentioned earlier on this, we interview Mr. Sewan Chon, the president, the country president, and asked him, what is your key, suggestion for the government to improve? And he mentioned about the intellectual property. So this is something that we also have to address, because it's part of our effort to give certainty, to business people, that when it comes to, let's say, capital intensive industry or the high tech industry like pharmaceuticals and things like that, the relevant protection is there, like the intellectual property. So this is something that we put in our top investment priority list. Thank you, Bu Eisya.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Cahyo, for your answer. My next question is, I will read a question from Oi Ming Chong. This is addressed to Pak Olly. This person wants to know, could you share a bit about investment opportunities in healthcare or life sciences in Indonesia?
Yeah, and I think feeds quite nicely onto what Pak Cahyo was just saying. We work closely with AstraZeneca because obviously the vaccine side of things, and they've been working closely with the Indonesian government on that. And just a point, I set up Michael Page 7 years ago in Indonesia. Things have improved significantly since then in terms of setting up businesses. So the overall sentiment is very positive. On the healthcare life science side of things, there's a lot going on, whether it's in health tech. There's significant movements in that area, and some very familiar names, I'm sure, to most of the audience. And again, significant investment from overseas behind those names. Through to sort of the hospital groups who are obviously under severe pressure at the moment. So we've done a significant recruitment drive for nurses, and that's ongoing, and making sure that you're not taking nurses from one area to causing a problem in one area to solve a solution in another area is also a part of that challenge as well. And again, we're seeing private equity firms in particular investing with local conglomerates who are interested in the healthcare space, because again, the expectation is that whole industry continues to modernize in Indonesia, and I think COVID has probably highlighted some challenges for the healthcare system as a whole, and quite rightly there's a lot of intent to improve that, and that we wait to see how that pans out. I think the first step is to, as has been said a couple of times, make sure the pandemic, the numbers look encouraging, but we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. But once the pandemic has eased up, I think some of the lessons learned from that, or some of the areas exposed, will present opportunities in the healthcare sector for sure. The likes of GlaxoSmithKline, AstraZeneca from the UK side, GlaxoSmithKline have been very prominent in Indonesia for a long time. AstraZeneca have big plans in Indonesia, not just on the vaccine side, but beyond that as well, as I'm sure Pak Cahyo knows from his conversations with. I think we've had similar conversations with the same person, and that's all very encouraging. And then the research and development and all these other areas as well. So, from my perspective, we're putting a lot of resource behind the healthcare life sciences piece, because again, along with areas like technology and sustainability, we see those three as the big areas of growth in Indonesia.
Okay, thank you, Polly. So definitely a lot of potential there in the healthcare and life sciences department.
100%.
Okay. My next question is from Ronja Reich. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. This question is for Pak Fesly. This person wants to know, where is the connection to Germany as Batam's top investment country? Why are there so many investment from Germany?
Okay, well, Elsa. So actually, there are no many companies from Germany at Batam, but the number is state the value of investment. So maybe there are 2 or 3 companies from Germany, but their investment value is expanding. The kind of investment, because they produce more electrical things, pharmaceutical, and also the semiconductors.
Okay, so definitely a lot of investment for Germany, and the number is growing.
Yeah. Yes, correct.
Okay. I think we still have time for some closing remarks from our speakers. I want to start with Pak Cahyo first, and then we go to Pak Fesly, and then Pak Olly to close this webinar. Pak Cahyo, please, for your closing remark.
Thank you. Let me take this opportunity to say once again that we are at the Ministry of Investment or Investment Coordinating Board is always at your side to all the business people when it comes to invest in Indonesia. We are here for you. Please reach or drop us email, or you can always follow our social media, for instance, or any other channels. You can always log on our website. We have www.bkm.go.id or oss.go.id, or even you can always contact us through different channels. We are there for you, for all the business people. And with this, this is also part of our broad outreach, not only to, let's say, put our presence in a let's say major newspaper, but also to be there to help you should you requires further information or assistance from us. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Cahyo. Pak Fesly, you can start with your closing remark.
Okay, Bu Elsa. First, we would like to thank you very much for the opportunity to introduce Batam as an investment destination. And once again, I said that BP Batam is open. We are very welcome for a new investment from all over the world, from the Europe, Asian, or US, anywhere. And if there's any question or requirement that you need, you can contact our marketing department, and don't hesitate to come to Batam. Thank you, Bu Elsa.
Thank you, Pak Fesly. Pak Olly, you can also close this webinar with your closing remark.
What an honor, thank you. There have been significant improvements in the regulatory side of things, and that should be applauded for sure. I think the pandemic itself, again, I run the region for my business, and Indonesia's handled it better, I think, in some cases than some of the other countries. So if it can come out of the pandemic a little bit, it'll help enormously with confidence. The G20 being sort of hosted is also significant as well in the next 12 months. So look, with the demographics that Indonesia has, it's one of the easiest countries to sell to foreign investors, because it doesn't take a hard sell as long as the back end continues to improve, which it is, and through the likes of the BKPM, that's absolutely key. If you match those two together, then there's no reason why some of the forecasts that Indonesia will be a top 10 economy globally in not that long a time will absolutely come true. So yeah, I'm very positive, both with my Britcham hat on and my Michael Page hat. So and hopefully the presentations today gave some insights into why that is.
Thank you very much, Pak Olly. And ladies and gentlemen, that wraps it up for today's Jakpost Up Close. We apologize if we have not answered your questions. I hope this webinar has been fruitful for our speakers and also the attendants. Thank you very much once again for all of our speakers, Pak Cahyo, Pak Fesly, and Pak Olly, for your time and insight. Also, warm thank you for our audience for your participation. Have a great day, stay safe, and see you on the next webinar.
Thank you, Eisya.
Thank you, Eisya. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.